us a minute. And then share them so you guys also know how everybody's fishing. So sometimes it is hard to fish all the time. We're not retired yet, right? So sometimes it's still really good. And trout is definitely the most popular fish to catch with fly fishing, but you can fish with anything. And have you ever tried fly fishing? Over 60%, that is really cool. So awesome. Hopefully we can help you fine tune some stuff and even get you on the water. Let me save that. All right. So my name is Abby Zarnecki. I am the Angler Education Coordinator for the Southern region. I am a Nevada native. I travel all around our area on more years than others. And then I also have Nicole Hamlin with me today, and she is our conservation aide, and she will be your moderator. She also fishes all over Nevada, all the way up through Idaho, and Oregon as well. So she can help answer questions if we have not answered a question that you're dying to ask. And then I will let Chris and Jeff introduce themselves and tell you guys maybe about their favorite fishing spot or favorite fish to catch as well.
You gonna go, Jeff, or you want me to go?
Oh, go for it.
All right. I'm Chris Lovlashevsky, also a Nevada native. Been fly fishing for about 5 years. Local in Nevada, favorite place to fly fish is Sunnyside. They have some great reservoirs up there you can float to. They've got some pretty big trout in there. They've also got bass and some other species in there. And then outside of Nevada, Utah has been the place to go lately. I've heard a lot of great things about California, though. I've only been a couple times, but it's any water that you can get on is awesome water.
Okay, my name is Jeff. I've lived here in Las Vegas for about 23 years. I'm from Southern California. I absolutely love fly fishing. It's my main hobby. I've been doing it for quite a while, but I still learn something every time I go on the water, which is one of my favorite parts about it. I like the challenge. I like being in nature. Trout usually don't live in ugly places, and that's my favorite thing about fly fishing. I'm looking forward to Saturday if you guys show up on the water. Again, I learn every time I'm on the water, but I also like to share and teach what I know, and hopefully we're able to teach you guys something. And I've spent most of my time in the Sierras of California fly fishing, using the Bishop area as a hub. And then recently I've been in Utah, but I've been all over the country fly fishing over the last 20 years.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So we'll jump right in. So since you guys sounds like you guys use spin casts or spinning reels, so you can fish with either in any water. You can catch bass with a fly rod as well, and you can catch trout with a spinning rod. So some of the little specifics are the rod lengths are usually longer for a fly rod unless you're using one of the entry level little bears or something like that. So 7 to 10 feet, of course. And then lots of different flexibilities with those. The reel position is going to be different. It's further down. It helps balance the reel. And then the line type is weighted. So that way it gets you out on the water. And sometimes you can get a lot further even. I even think that you have more options when you're fly fishing, honestly. Spinning is usually more convenient. It's just more comfortable to more people, but the rod length is shorter. So it's harder to get out sometimes. The reel position is going to be different. It's a little further up on the rod. And usually with that, you're using the monofilament line unless you're using braided. We'll go over some knots too. And so if you guys are regular anglers, you'll be comfortable with most of these knots. Basic equipment, we're going to help make sure that you have the right fishing rod. Please ask us about all that. We have all been looking and shopping for different rods and reels. Different spool types as well. Sometimes some people prefer small or large arbors, and we'll show you what that is. And then lines. So you'll have different parts of the fly line all connected to make the perfect fly rod combo. So let's break that down. So if you have a more flexible fly rod, it's going to bend more on you, but there are options for a stiffer fly rod, but those are definitely for bigger, heavier fish. But you can see that she's definitely getting some play with that one. And she has her net ready. But there are so many options, especially if you go to a fly shop, that it can be a little overwhelming. But they are definitely the guys that are going to know in these fly shops. They're the ones that get people on the water. They test the equipment. They know their area. So if there's a fly shop in an area that you're new to fishing, that'd be my first stop. Maybe get lunch and then go to the fly shop. You can see all the fly tying materials. If you have a nice, convenient little fly kit that you can set up in your car on the water, that's always amazing. So you can even get materials to tie flies right there in case they're out of stock, because everyone is getting out and getting on the water lately. All right, so I'll bring the guys in on this one. So just an awesome fly chart. So panfish are usually like bluegill and green sunfish, and they're going to stay small or perch, something like that. And you only need a 1 to 4 weight rod. Then you're going to start getting into trout, which you can still use a 1 or 4 weight rod, but if you want to catch the bigger fish, you're definitely going to want to go 4 to 6 weight, if not 7. And same with bass. So depending on the body of water you're fishing, you may get into some pretty big lunkers. And so then you're going to start wanting to push a 6 to 8 weight rod. And that's also great for salmon or saltwater fish or andromenous fish like striped bass too. That can get really big, like down at Willow Beach or Central California. I've heard that's some really good fishing in the spring. And then bigger salmon, bigger saltwater species, and you're going to start getting into the 8 and 10 weights, and then big game, which would be your big saltwater fish. You can definitely go all the way up to a 10 or 14 weight rod. So Jeff or Chris, do you guys have some comments on those?
If you don't mind. It depends upon what you guys are going to target on what size or what weight fly rod you want to buy. That species list is perfect. And then you have to figure, are you going to fish in our urban ponds we have here in Las Vegas? If so, that 1 to 4 weight fly rod is the best. Let's say you want to go and catch the trout when they plant them at Willow Beach. A 5 weight rod is perfect for that. If you're going to own one fly rod, now this is just an opinion, but if you're going to own one, get a 9-foot 5 weight rod because it's the most versatile here on the West Coast or in the Western United States. But if you are planning on, utilizing Lake Mead, you definitely want to get a heavier 7 or 8 weight rod for those bass because there are big fish in there. I don't own an extensive collection of fly rods, but I have a couple ultralight rods, which is in the 1 and 4. I use my 5 weight 90% of the time, and I use an 8 weight once a year when I go to Pyramid Lake, or one time if we go and surf in the waves in Southern California. But other than that, that's it. A 5 weight rod is the most versatile.
And if you guys are coming out on Saturday, I was gonna bring a 1 weight, a 4 weight, and my 8 weight, just so you guys could see them and kind of see the difference with the rods, just so you can kind of get a feel for it. And that way you can kind of understand the different actions and the way the lines go and all that kind of stuff too.
And some of you, I recognize some names that just signed up today. So I sent out an email yesterday, and if you're in the Las Vegas or anywhere nearby and can get here Saturday morning around 7:30 just to beat the heat and potential weather, who knows, lately with our monsoon season coming. The guy, Jeff and Chris and Claire and Michelle will be out to help with our loaner equipment. So I am the Southern Region court. Sorry. So let me back up just because of a question popping up in the comments. I am the Southern Region coordinator. So, and we are from Vegas. So right now our meetup's in Las Vegas, but both of the guys, and I have the at symbol on our last page with our email. They are on the Facebook group, Las Vegas Fly Fishing Addicts, and they do travel. So if they want to meet you guys on their personal time, definitely that would be the place to talk to them about that elsewhere. But for right now, just because we're literally, this is probably one of our first classes. I think this will be the first one that Angler Education has done for Nevada since last spring or winter. So we're just keeping it small and local for now, just because the guys are running some camps, youth camp, summer camp up north this week. But Jan will have all of your all your emails, and Joe also has your contacts on the Zoom links that when you register, and I will make sure that they have your emails, or you can we'll share that link too. Nicole can share our link on our website so that you can also contact them if they're closer, because I saw some people from Utah and California. So those other regions might be easier for you. So for right now, this Saturday, we are doing our meetup at Veterans Memorial Park Pond at 7:30 a.m. and we'll cut it off at 9 a.m. just because it's going to be over 100 by then. And if it's too hot for us, the fish are hiding out too. They're not going to want to get up into the brighter waters either. So if they bite, they're probably letting go pretty quick. So Reno, so that would be Jan, and yeah, I'll make sure he has your email. Right, so, and yes, the truck will be packed up, so there will be different fly rods as well and different reels so you guys can look at it. Also, normally in person, we have a whole table set up with all kinds of gear, so that'll also be in the truck for people to look at. All right, so on this side of the rod, there is a weight system, and that's what we keep talking about. So right on the side, it says how long it is and the weight. And you're going to want to make sure you know that weight for your line, for your reel, and then that way it's balanced, it casts nice. If it's off balance, if it's not casting right, something's probably the matter there. So this part is nice and easy. So 0 is light, right? Small number, and heavy is 13. Sometimes we get into the line and we start getting a little backwards, but we'll try to make it simple for you. So like Jeff had said, 5 weight is like perfect. 6, 7 gets a little heavier duty. So honestly, they should have made the circle probably more over the 4 or 5 weight for most waters, unless you're getting into bigger streams, hitting Pyramid Lake, or going to the ocean, something like that. Want to get bigger. So most rods, I'd even say like for beginning level, 8.5 to 9.5 is most common and most comfortable. So I put that on there. Sorry. All right, and then this is all preference too, depending on how you're holding it. We do have some slides coming up to show you like how holding it can actually mess up your cast too. So definitely recommend grabbing a handle and making sure that that's the right one for you. Ultralights are always nice. They don't always come in cork. Sometimes they come in foam. Sometimes boards as well. What are some other ones, Jeff?
I've mainly seen cork and foam. Mainly, those are the most common.
And oh, good question. So definitely want to answer this now, and also want to bring up how to maintain it. But can the handle grips be switched out?
I don't
believe.
I have no idea.
I was gonna say, I think no. I've never heard of them switched out, but you can get them custom made. So some of the really bigger specific companies, you can kind of get it very specific, or have them work on something for you. So it's more just trying different ones that are already made. The part that you're gonna switch is your reel. So you're gonna have the fly rod, and then also one of the options is having a fighting butt, especially if you're in moving water. So that was a really good question. And personally, for me, I do like a modified well handle or an ultralight. That way it does kind of hold, but I don't want, and I do like that, like it kind of holds your hand in place even with my small hands, but I definitely don't want like the cigars too much for my hands. But if you have bigger hands, that can be easier, but it's literally all preference. But make sure you're also holding it right when you're trying them out. Ask for help. Were there any other questions? I thought I saw a hand go up. You can always go back though. All right, so some good words to know are the different kinds of fly rods. So some are called fast action, medium action, or slow action. Fast action's that stiffer rod, greater for windy conditions or longer cast. It'll help shoot it out there and keep it nice and straight. Medium action is honestly the most universal. So you'll get a little bit more bend and you can go fast or slow with it. And then slow action is very lightweight moving, really delicate, really have to have really good timing. And it gives you that full bend so that you can play with the fish. Any, Jeff or Chris, any comments on which ones you prefer or things you've noticed?
Chris, go ahead.
Sorry, I had to unmute. The fast action rods are, like Abby said, good with if you're fishing kind of bigger game fish, like if you're getting into, if you're out, I don't know, at a lake and you're getting into bigger bass and you need to cast out a little bit farther, it kind of gives you a little bit more of a secure feeling when you're holding it. It is completely different than spin or bait casting, where the rod does bend and you kind of get a little hurrah out of it. The fly rods are going to go almost in half. So with the different actions in the rods also, it gives it kind of a little bit of a stiffer feel. It's kind of just on preference, what you want to use and what you're going to target at the end of the day. Because there's some guys that and girls that I know that like using fast action rods for little tiny 6-8 inch fish. And then there's people I know that one of our buddies in California will fight a 20-inch brown on a super ultralight rod, and he loves it. So it's pretty much just preference and up to what you want to do.
All right. So this one's been in, this one I carried over from our 10-year-old presentation just because it's so funny. But if you prefer the fast action, something close to a broom handle would be what you're kind of fishing with. But you can see he has a lot of control over that, and it's not going to go anywhere. But he's still going to have to take his time and make sure that he gets that fly back so that he doesn't make a big mess all around the rod there. All right, so let's jump into the reels. So small arbor versus large arbor. So that's the middle section, and that's also exchangeable. So just like any reel, you can switch it on and off your fishing rod. But the line with a small arbor is going to go around a smaller hole or smaller middle. And then the large arbor is going to go wider. So you're going to have less circles with a large rod versus the small arbor. You can definitely put more line on the small arbor than the large arbor. And then with the small arbor, I would recommend cleaning it more often, stretching the line and testing the line. Large, you always want to clean your line almost every time you're out, especially in the West, just because of all the dirt and plants and just because of the warm temperatures. We usually have more vegetation, more dirt that we're messing with. Sometimes the water is not the cleanest. There's a lot of stuff in the water. It's just thicker. All that's going to mess with your fly line. So you're definitely going to want to just keep it clean and stretch it out and check it. But with the small arbor, you're going to have a lot more circles. And so you're definitely going to want to make sure you're stretching and straightening your line before you get going on the water versus the large arbor. Do either of you guys have questions on it or comments on those, Jeff or Chris?
I think they're both great. They're not a bad choice. But with the small and the large arbor reels, it's a preference thing. The benefit of the large arbor is if you're playing a fish on the reel, when you turn it around one more time, it will grab more line overall than the small arbor reel. It's like a hub on a bicycle, right? So smaller or larger. So it takes the small arbor reel reeling more to reel up the line than the large arbor. You just grab more line. The majority of the reels that I have are large arbor reels, and I think and I could be wrong, but I think the small arbor ones, it's more of maybe older technology, but it doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's not good. But it all boils down to, whatever you like, and the only way that you know that is when you try them both and have an opportunity to kind of, get some experience with the rods and reels, basically.
Well said. So here it is taken apart. The gunk in there is to help the gears move. So you definitely want to make sure that that's clean and smooth. And then large arbor, hoping you can see that a little better, and you can see how versus the small arbor, it's a smaller circle and the large arbor is almost double. So you have just like a wheel, just like Jeff said. And the color of your fly line does not matter. That is all preference. Again, you make it yours. I love my fly rod. It's blue and green. I definitely do like green out here. I don't know if it matters or not, but I feel like it blends a little more. And sometimes I get a little fry nibbling on the line, just thinking it's food on top of the water. So it's kind of fun, even if I'm not catching. Automatic reels are awesome, can be awesome. They can also be a little dangerous. But if you're limited physically, that is definitely an option for you. And all you have to do is have one hand, you can click it and it helps reel it in for you, and you just slowly keep the tension. So it is an option. Let us know if that is something that you might need help with. We'll definitely help you with. We do have a few, but I would definitely invest in more if we had more opportunity to help with those. So if you're not careful, the automatic reel will just bring the fish right in on top of the line. So it can be a little rough for the fish and for you. All right, so jumping right into it, we might get done early depending on questions and water questions later on. Main three things to your fly line. You'll have your backing, and that's for mainly for bigger waters or for moving waters. And then that's braided, and then you're gonna have to connect that to your fly line. And so it comes, these are typical boxes that you'll see at the store. These are some of our older boxes. We're still getting updated versions of some of these. The fly line is either floating or sinking, and that's again preference. So you may want, depending on where you're fishing, if you're fishing a reservoir and it's warmer and the fish are deeper, you may want a sinking line. So you may want to switch out your reel for that. You can switch out the arbors on your reel. So you can have one with sinking line, and you can have the same reel and switch out the arbor and have floating line. And then that way your line is all staying on top of the water. And then you have to tie on leaders and tippets, and sometimes nice and easy, the leaders come with the loop to loop connection. So it makes it really easy. And then you just switch out the tippet, and then that's what you're tying your flies to. And honestly, to begin, you can even get it all set up. So you can buy a combo rod for around, honestly, I think they're up to 150 now. But it comes with your rod, reel, combo, and it's definitely going to be entry level, but it could get you on the water right away. So Jeff or Chris, do you want to answer, what line would you recommend for river fishing, floating or sinking, or a like the mid?
Chris, you want to take it or you want me to take it?
Well, depending on it all depends on what weight of rod you have and what weight your reel is. Like I have a crosswater Reddington reel that I can use for 4, 5, or 6 weight, and I have it set up for my 4 weight. And it was stream, right? Was the question? So if I'm fishing a stream or a what?
River.
Or a river, depending, I mean, typically I would use a floating line. And then depending on if I wanted to get down into the water depths, I would use split shot, which is essentially, I don't even remember what they're called anymore. Just weights.
Just like lead weight. Yeah, there's lead weights.
Yeah, just weights to get the flies down. I personally wouldn't use a sinking line on a river because it's hard to tell how deep they are. Mostly floating line for rivers and streams.
All right, and then the next question, oh yeah, for the Truckee River. And that river definitely fluctuates. So Chris said it perfectly. You don't know sometimes the depths of those rivers. So once you're casting out, if you feel like you need to get it deeper, adding little weights They look like little BBs, and you can get a nice little circle of them and with different sizes. And then that way, just depending on how much you want to add.
And you'll hear people say, especially guides, if you get a guide trip, they'll refer to it as ticking on the bottom, where you can actually feel the bottom fly hitting the bottom of the river. You can feel it through the rod. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty cool. So just something to think about.
Another question, what's the purpose of the backing? Okay, so let me go to our next slides too to make sure. Okay, so to help answer some of these questions, and then we'll get into tippet and leader specifics too. So the backing is 20 or 30 pound test. So just like you're fishing a big, so down here on the Colorado River below the dam, it's been pretty neat. The striped bass have actually gotten up to 20, 30 feet, and the guys are fishing with these $100 lures that look like small trout, but they are going out with 20 or 30 pound braided test, just like you're backing on a fly rod. And that is going to guarantee that you bring this fish in. That's going to guarantee that you give it room to run. And that way your fly rod hopefully doesn't break in half either, because you have good backing. And literally it's like the backbone of your fly line.
And your fly line is typically only 80 to 100 feet, depending on what brand of fly line you buy. So it's essentially an extension of that, if the fish pulls all of your fly line out.
Yeah, you will only cast your fly line. You'll never cast backing. But if a fish takes you into the backing, you know you're in for one heck of a fight.
You're having a hoot and a holler.
So here's some pictures of those. So either weight forward, double tapered, and these are the abbreviations that will be on the box. It won't spell it out usually. It'll just have the WF, the DT, or the level line. I like weight forward. I'm not good at pushing the line out like I'm supposed to most of the time. And plus, I'm honestly pushing into wind. And I know a lot of us deal with wind out here. So I like weight forward because it's easier to cast into the wind. But there is also double tapered or level line, and double tapered, I'd say your fly line's pretty level, but it will taper at the end and the other end. So it's a little weird in a way, but that way it's a little thinner at the front than the back.
For simplicity's sake, I would recommend for everybody to just fish a weight forward. I mean, there's so many options, it's hard to keep up with the market nowadays, but for simplicity's sake, if you're using a floating line, weight forward, and you're in the right place, you're on the right path.
So one of the questions is about a specific rod. So we will get into that a little bit more. So give us a minute and we will look that up too. So I do just want to go back real quick because I flew through this. So here's a picture, a perfect example of a box, nice middle range box. It's going to be weight forward. It's going to say 3 on it, and that's your 3 weight. And just like Chris was saying, this one actually only has 30 yards on it. But it'll match your rod. So sometimes they're 20 to 50. So, but usually that is plenty of room, like they were saying as well. And to make it even easier, and if this gets all kinds of confusing because there are so many components to getting started, you can definitely look up combos and just see what they're, some of the more expensive ones, and seeing what they're recommending too. And that just kind of gives you an idea of what they recommend working together too. that you have to buy it, but it's definitely always a good idea to shop around or just look around. So your line is going to kind of go with your rod, but it's going to be a little less. So for a 6-weight, you can go 3, 4, probably 3 or 4 at the most, maybe 5. Oh, and then here we go. This was the question about, or we touched on it real quick. And so the F is going to be right there to the side, and it'll say full floating or just the sink. So just the front will sink. So front sink. And then sinking or intermediate. So either way, it's going to sink on you, and so it'll have an S. But it's a lot easier to sink a floating line than it is to be stuck with a reel that's only sinking and all the fish are near the top. And now you can't get to them and they're not interested feeding off the bottom that day. All right, so our question about tippets and leaders. So this is where it kind of gets mixed up. And if anybody has any awesome tips for how to remember it, please let us know. Oh, more examples. So your leaders are going to come in these pouches, and your tippet material you're going to cut off and add on. And this is just for your flies. So if you're going to have a busy long day, you can cut off a bigger piece. If you're just doing a couple, you don't need as big of a piece. So again, medium weight rod, we were looking at 4, 5, 6. So again, we can look at our leaders and tippets being around 5, but the ultralight actually goes bigger and then the heavier goes smaller. So this kind of goes into connection with the hooks. So the bigger the number, the smaller it is. And then the smaller the hook size, the heavier, the bigger it is. So kind of think fly line, fly rod, those numbers match. Your leader tippet that's going to tie onto your fly or whatever your fly, that is going to match your leader and tippet. Any other tricks to remember that? And what's really neat, I did one of those monthly giveaways for Christmas, and they actually sent a tippet rod, and then that way you can just keep them all together. You can keep it on your fly jacket or pouch, and so that's pretty neat. You can tie it right on, and that way you can rip it off as you need it to, or clip it off. All right. So keeping that line clean, you can get these awesome little boxes and strip it through there, and you just add a little glide cleaner. You can also, an old trick, make sure the silicone is a lubricant and light and not made for like industrial strength for cars. So just be careful with that. Probably just start out with a little bottle from the fly shop, and then that way you're safer. Go with a nice light towel. Microfiber towels are nice, but they'll add a little static. Those pretty much the bags of ripped shirt towels are great for cleaning the line. That's what we've always used. But these boxes are really neat and they're full of cotton. Ooh, and, oh, this thing has a mind of its own. So do you guys have certain tools that you use to keep your line clean?
Just what's shown. Just what's shown. I like to wash the reels after I'm done fishing, and I just put them in the rack in the kitchen, just like you would your plates, and just let them dry. Just a simple rinse is all I do. I don't necessarily use the chemical products shown, but they're good and they serve a purpose, and absolutely, it's a preference thing also.
Yeah, I just rinse mine off, and like Jeff said, I just let them dry. Probably every once in a while, I have a little cloth towel that I use, and I'll just take out all the fly line and then just run it through my hand with the towel. And you'll see there'll be some grime on it, but and then they also have like the fly line. They have the cleaner sets that you were talking about, and they have some, I think it's Loon makes a product called Line Speed. It's supposed to help keep the line moist, or whatever they say it is, keeps it lasting longer. I've never tried it, but I've had some friends that have used it and they say it's pretty good. So might be something I try this year.
Awesome. And keeping it nice and clean also keeps a floating line near the top. All that buildup can definitely sink your floating line. So again, yeah, microfiber towels are known for cleaning without having to use any product at all. So a nice good rinse with some nice clean water, and you're good to go. Good question. How often should we stretch out the line? Honestly, you clean it, you naturally stretch it out, and then I definitely stretch it out before I go on the water. Any more than that, do you guys recommend?
Yeah, I mean, if the reel's been sitting for a while, it's not a bad idea to. But again, most of us, we don't cast the full line. So maybe you just take 30 feet of it or 25 feet and just kind of, and you're not playing tug of war, just, gentle and reel it back in, and you're good to go.
Yeah, you want it to just be kind of like warm in your hands. You're not gonna like rip it crazy like Jeff was saying. You just want it so it straightens it out and gives it a little bit of straightness to it.
And if you've accidentally left your fly equipment in the garage or something like that and it got hot, when you stretch it out, you're also testing it. So definitely get it out before you go. You don't want to find out it's all melted on you on the water. So definitely doing it before you go out is probably the best. Cleaning it up on your way in, and then right before you go out. So the most important thing to catching the fish is the flies. How long can, oh, good question. How long can the line last if it's kept in good shape? Well, the equipment at our office, we usually do about 3 fly fishing classes every year. And I would say they're at least 10 to 15 years old, and we just regularly maintain them. So it's definitely an investment. So think of it that way too when you get it. My personal set's at least 5 years old, and I don't see pushing that out anytime soon either. Very good question. Since we're going into a new subject and we still have this question, I think the question specifically is about the Cabela Prestige 2, 9-foot 5 weight. So like Jeff said at the beginning, the 9-foot 5 weight is very universal and great for most waters around here, unless you're going to a big reservoir and catching monster fish. And then always check the reviews. So I don't know that one specifically, but it looks like a good beginning set. So you could definitely get started and catch fish with it. I'd say as long as you're comfortable with it and you're getting it out there and you're getting a nice straight cast, it's going to be up to the flies and your presentation. And I say that for all my webinars about catching fish. Sorry, I'm a white ghost too. The lighting's a little rough. It's all about the presentation to the fish and what they're eating. So you want to make sure that you're not, like right now, they're jumping out of some of these waters, catching the dragonflies and the damselflies that are on top of the water, or the grasshoppers are big in Central California right now. So that's what you're probably going to want to fish with for your flies. In the spring, we were using all nymphs and or woolly buggers. So something that kind of looks like an emerging aquatic fish. So that's going to be what really catches your fish, is knowing what they're working on. So the two main types of flies, dry flies float because they're dry on top of the water. Wet flies sink and they're wet, they're in the water. So the wet flies are going to be your nymphs, your emergers, anything in the water, and that's what you're imitating or attracting. Or a small fish is going to be a wet fly, like a streamer. And then your dry flies are your Adams, your Griffith's gnats, drawing a blank on some.
Elk-hair caddisses, stimulators. There's more than you can possibly list.
Exactly. Charts, if you look for them, they're hard to find, but there are some awesome charts, and we're working on some too. So this is somebody's fly box that we took a picture of, and actually this is the Griffith's Gnat cup that I will be sending out. I think I replaced the cup because it had been in the truck for a little while, but it's full of Griffith's gnats, and the sunfish love it because they have a little red tail and they look really buggy like an ant or a fly, and they don't sink too fast. So at first they're like, wait, what's that? And then it kind of sinks down, and that's when you start getting some attention. So this will be the cup to cast with on Saturday morning, especially for our urban ponds that we have the warm species stocks. Trout too will go after this, especially seeing that red. They're like, wait. And I will answer those questions. 1 second and see what other pictures we have. All right, so here's an awesome variety box. I want to say this is one of our contest boxes too for the junior fly boxes. So what fly would you recommend for winter fishing? For me, depends on winter. We don't really have winter down here. We have a late fall and an early spring. Late fall, around Thanksgiving to the holidays, I would do these darker streamers and like woolly buggers. And then early spring, I would do those nymphs. What are your guys' recommendations for December to February?
Midges, very, very small midges. If you look at the waters, first and foremost, fly fishing, study the flies. The more you know about the flies, the more fish you're going to catch, and that's the nature of the game. Midges are one of the most common bugs you'll find in the wintertime, and you can never go wrong. So just paying attention to forums, people are always saying midges, 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 midges in the wintertime. So that's just things that I've been reading the last couple of years.
Yeah, I concur. I would go midges, nymphs, and a couple different woolly buggers, some classic woolly buggers and some fluffier ones, and I think you'd be able to catch everything all year round in different colors. Oh, so this is just pictures too of different kinds of fly boxes. You can also get some awesome ones. We have some, is called Las Vegas Hatch, the Hatch, and they're actually made by a 10-year-old kid. So those are pretty neat. And they're magnetic, so they're great for those midges and those itty bitty nymphs. And they just stick right to the magnet strip, or he makes them with cork and you can just stick them in there. And then this is just foam or just a little box. And then some float with the foam in it and some don't, and some seal, some don't. So it depends on how wet you're getting them and your jacket or your bag that you're keeping them in. All right, so some more accessories. You need a vest or somewhere to put up your tools. You want to be able to have the clippers and the pliers on just in case you need to cut the barbs off or clamp them down. And we'll go over some more miscellaneous equipment. So some vest options, totally up to you, depending on your pockets. If I'm on my kayak, I actually have a life jacket that has just 2 big pockets and then it has a couple little pockets and then they just flip down. And then you can just stick the fly box right in the pocket there. These are nice because you can attach little, your tools to them with little carabiners. This is to help release the hook if they swallow it. Sometimes trout are notorious for being too hungry. This is actually, I'm not sure of the proper name, but at the, didn't touch anything. There's like a tool aisle at the store, and this will be mixed in, and it is the straightener. And so it's made of leather or like a foam, and it helps straighten your line, and it just creates that nice little clean like a clean warmth, and it'll help straighten it really nice and easy. It actually works really well. And then you can actually get pliers with the nippers built in, so you don't have to have 2 tools as well. But if not, this is the perfect basic setup to attach to a jacket or to your pouch. So this is kind of like Chris was saying, there's a few brands that have all kinds of different tools, tricks. Dry Magic is like to help dry out your fly so it keeps floating, because sometimes they just start taking on water. I usually just blow on mine a little bit, help get any water off. This is pretty much all different floating tools. There's also this cup that you can actually, instead of adding a thingamabobber, you can actually just grip off a little piece of foam, and it's almost like using power bait as your thingamabobber floater, and you just attach it to the line wherever you want. Not the most reliable, it can definitely fall off. So thingamabobbers are the bobber version for fly line, and it's like a strike indicator on top of the water. I don't think I added those into the slides. But here's those split shot weights that you add on to help sink. You can add it at the top or the bottom, just like with bass fishing. Sometimes people even recommend adding it to the bottom of your line so that that is what's hitting the rocks, and then you have your 2 flies above that. And then sometimes people like just fishing with 1 fly. Sometimes it is fun fishing with 2 flies, kind of to test the waters too, but it can sometimes scare them off if they're really confused by it and they're like, I'm not going near either of those. And then like I was saying, the strike indicators. So you have something like a thingamabobber, and then you have the little foams that you can add on. You can even just use yarn, and they also help to help control the line depth. Do you guys have any little tools that you can't go on the water without, like these?
Forceps and nippers. You need forceps and nippers, especially forceps, to remove the first, you guys fish barbless hooks, even if it's a barbless water or not. When you're fly fishing, you are going to stick yourself with the hook, and fishing barbless is for you as much as it is the fish. You can't pinch that barb down without the forceps, so you got to have that.
I'll agree on those 2, but I'll add in like the indicators Abby's talking about. There's a brand called Airlocks. that are literally just little, it's a bobber with a screw, and the top of the bobber has a little slit in the top, and you slide it, and that makes it so much easier. Though I always have those with me. It's just a preference thing. Everybody has a thing that they have. And then split shot, because you never know if you're going to need it.
Definitely. And as Jeff was saying, this is the perfect segue to stuff to have to protect yourself as well. And so 2 things. If you plan to meet us out on Saturday, I will share the links with you. Sorry, so back to the indicator before I move on. Yes, I know I use indicators all the time. Do you guys use indicators a lot?
Yes, when fishing nymphs.
Yeah.
When fishing nymphs or fishing midges, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, mainly anything that is a wet fly.
Yes.
Yeah, even like some of the places, some of the reservoirs we were fishing end of last year, even into the spring and early summer, just using balanced leeches. So it's just a leech pattern that hangs upside down and it just rocks with the waves, and you put an indicator on. And as the indicator goes up and down, the fly moves up and down as the indicator does with the waves on the reservoirs. So that makes it easier. So you're not sitting there stripping line in, casting back out, stripping it in, casting it out.
True. I forgot about that. All right. So, and on to protect. Oh, so go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just, I'm sorry. One thing, when you're fishing, one of the most important things, it doesn't matter if you're fishing in still water or moving water, you're going to see fish if they're eating on the top of the water, or you can see them surfacing. That's a good indication that you need to be throwing a dry fly or an emerger. If you don't see any fish activity in the water at all, those fish are still feeding, but they're feeding down below. And if that's the case, that's when you're going to need your strike indicator, sinking line, so on and so forth. So you have to kind of pay attention. If you see fish on the surface, dry fly. If you don't, then you want to use something wet. And sorry, Abby, I just thought we should throw that in there real quick before we move on.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely look at that water. One of my friends that taught me fishing, Chris P, that's helps with the fly tying every month, and is now working in near Yellowstone on the rivers. He says some of his friends used to make fun of him because he took so long to get on the water, but he got ready on the water. But while he was getting ready, he was watching the water the whole time. So by the time he did get on the water, he was already ready. He didn't waste his time fishing the wrong fly. He knew what he wanted to fish because he either saw him below or above. So it sometimes, most of the time, is going to make more sense to be prepared and take your time and get ready to go out. And just have options with you too, just in case it changes. And then when you're getting ready and you're preparing, I added the magnifiers on here, and then that's for tying those little size 20 midges and trying to get the fly line or the tippet into those itty bitty fly eyes. Magnifiers that can clip right onto your hat are great for trying to see that, or even on a sunny day. My eyes are still good, and I even have a hard time seeing the little eye sometimes, especially if it's really bright out. So the magnifiers will definitely help make it bigger, and they're adjustable. Sunglasses will protect you from getting a fly in the eye if it gets windy and it takes your line out on you, or you get stuck and you're pulling it out. Especially as a beginner, I definitely recommend sunglasses, and you can see into the water a little better if you get the polarized. So I definitely recommend that. And then hats, just because it is really hot out here, protects your eyes, protects your head from flies getting in it or getting attached to it, and your ears. So my hair is only going to do so much to protect my ears, but I'll put a hat on too and just give another layer of protection. And then having an awesome net with the silicone. Silicone for almost everything is the new environmentally friendly item. It's also great to protect the fish, especially when you're catching and releasing. You want to make sure that if you have to use your net, that it's silicone and not that dry like mesh. It just strips their sides. Don't use a towel, please. Make sure your hands are wet if you touch them. You don't want to strip off any of the protecting coating, which is that sliminess that fish have. But that's going to protect them in the long run and keep them floating upright and for more people to be able to catch. And you guys can jump in at any time.
I agree with you. Wet hands. And keep the fish wet as long as possible.
Yes. And I have
Yeah,
one
don't.
too.
If you're gonna do pictures, have somebody ready with the camera. Keep the fish in the water, and then even if it's a 4-inch fish and it's your first one, keep it in the water as long as you can, and have whoever, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, buddy, whoever. I know Jeff and I fish a lot together, and if we do pictures, it's, hey, are you ready? Okay, pull the fish up, take the picture, get the fish back in the water. And then just share the pictures. Don't try to not have the fish out of the water for more than a couple seconds at a time.
Well said. This picture, it's one of my favorite. I do not have this pack yet for fly fishing, but it's on my wish list, maybe for Christmas this year. There's just some brands that just make some really cool fly equipment, and this is one of them. And so it's the new fanny pack, and it comes with side pockets too. Obviously, when it's colder, make sure you have a nice lightweight jacket that you can get wet. Make sure all of your materials are safe to get wet and will quickly dry. Fleece is awesome. Waders, neoprene, or breathable if they're in the winter. Sometimes trout waters are just naturally cold, so they're definitely colder for us, and we can only stay in them so long. Definitely just keep that in mind. You don't want to overheat though either within your waders. And then hat, glasses, and to protect your hands. Our sun's pretty brutal. Some nice fishing gloves, or sometimes they have really nice padding because your hands just kind of hurt if you're casting a lot. So some nice gloves are always a benefit. They don't have to be specific for fly fishing. They can be anything. Trying to think what else. I think that pretty much sums up all the gear.
I use a sling pack. I have a sling pack and a vest. And I always have a little Ziploc bag that I put a couple Band-Aids, some alcohol wipes, Tylenol. Even though I do take, sometimes we look at weather reports and you see weather, I have like one of those little $1.50 or $2 ponchos that you can get, and I just put that stuff in a Ziploc bag and I keep that with me too, because even if you're out there and you don't need it, there could be another angler or another person that's out there that could use something like that, and it's just nice to have something like that in case you or somebody else does need it.
Definitely. And to add on, alcohol is great for us to keep clean. It is really bad on your fishing gear. So just a warning for that. It will eat right through that tippet and leader. And to add on, I would also a little bottle of something like Benadryl, like an allergy, in case, like he said, your friend or somebody gets bit. Benadryl will definitely keep a nice spider bite at bay. So
Sunscreen and insect repellent also.
Yes, sunscreen and insect repellent. And if you're sensitive to insect repellent, they have awesome little bracelets that are pretty good for all that too. Good points. Definitely insect repellent this time of year. All right, so we do have a question and we will answer that towards the end on where to fish because we'll pull up the map. All right, so back to that fishing line. We're gonna have to connect everything. This is kind of a hard one to organize, but don't want to leave this out. Arbor knots, you're always gonna tie your line to your reel, no matter what it is, with an arbor knot. So make sure you're comfortable with that. And I do have pictures for all these. You can take pictures of these. This is being recorded, so it will be on our YouTube channel also, so you can check in on it later. You're gonna have the arbor knot with your backing. Then you're gonna go into your fly line with an Albright knot. Some use a nail knot there. Then you can also use a nail knot at the end to connect your leader. Or you can use a loop-to-loop connection sometimes. And then your leader to your tippet, you're going to use a surgeon's knot or loop-to-loop connection. And then at the end of the tippet is your fly, and that's going to be your improved clinch knot, which is also the basic fisherman's knot, depending on where you look. So YouTube has some great videos for all this. Here's some basic pictures. So the arbor knot is a knot loop around your line, and then you also have a knot at the end of the line, and then when you cinch it down, it tightens on itself and stays on the reel. It's a nice, fun, easy one. Albright knot is usually you're going to make that loop-to-loop connection. You're going to bend the fly line, and then you're going to loop it around, and that almost creates that blood knot, and then create a double knot on the other end. So we'll pick for there. And also we do recommend, thank you, Nicole. We recommend animatedknots.com because you can literally pause it as you go, or just have it on a loop. And so it's really easy. Animated knots is the entry, is the knots for YouTube, like the YouTube version of knots. They're all there. So here's the nail knot, named because you usually use a nail or a tube, and they even have little tools in the fly equipment that look like a nail, and you can put the line through there, and they have the directions on there too. So this is how you do your line to line connection. I honestly really like a double uni knot too, and you just tie both your knots together and pull it, and it's really, really smooth. So double uni knots are something to look into as well. Usually used for braided to monofilament line. And then here's the surgeon's knot. This one's really awesome, really quick. And you can do a double surgeon's knot, and it just makes it stronger. So these are all knots you'd use for basic fishing. Definitely look into the double version of most of these if you're going for bigger fish or out on the ocean, or anything where you're going to have a tougher time. And then here's the loop to loop. Literally loop it in and around itself, and they connect and they disconnect, so it makes it easy to switch out. But just make sure it's not looped inside each other. That makes it messy. Make sure it's nice and sitting on top of each other. If it's not smooth, you're going to run into trouble with your knots or with your line, and it just gets messed up on the reel. It gets messed up on the water. So you definitely want smooth, flat knots as much as possible. And here's a really quick improved clinch knot. Definitely recommend 4 or 5 times only around the eye. Make sure you go back around. If you have enough line, I even put a little knot and then tag in there, the top part, just to make sure it doesn't pull through or untie on me. And if your hand's slightly wet, That way when you're pulling it down, you're not tearing, especially when you're using tippet, it's really fragile.
Yeah.
Having a little moisture, if it's
Moisture, absolutely.
you can put it in your mouth, but if you're sharing equipment, please don't put it in your mouth. All right, so on to casting before you guys can get out on the water. In your mind, we're not picturing I wish I need to add the movie where
The river runs through it.
everyone pictures a river runs through it. Yes, that's beautiful, but sometimes that just confuses you. So what I picture and what I tell people to picture is how you're going to get that line nice and straight on the water. So you don't want it as A, you don't want it as B, you want it C. B is going to create lots of knots and lots of problems along the way. If you have room, slightly off to the side, try to do this without my background getting messed up, slightly off to the side, not bending your wrist, and get it nice and flat on the water. We have a lot of shrubs around some of these awesome trout waters. So just having a good roll cast, sometimes the best, and knowing how to shake out your weighted line. That was probably the coolest thing I think I ever learned. As long as the water's slightly moving, it'll help pull out your line, and you literally just make sure you have enough line out at your feet that you can kind of shake it out onto the water and then just keep letting it go down the river, down the stream. But picture a nice straight line landing on the water, because the nice straight lines are also the smoothest, and they're going to be like, oh, a bug just landed, and they're going to attack it like right away. Fish have very short memory spans. We actually usually have a tank at the Clark County Fair with see-through sides, and you can literally watch them. And it's pretty neat, like learning the fish brain and what they really go after. And so sometimes when you're stripping it in afterwards, I don't think I have this in there. You're going to slowly strip it in, like I was saying with a presentation. That movement, they forgot what you landed over here and are already like, wait, what just showed up over here? So very short memory spans. So just make sure it looks good when you move it. So this is the basic ones. This is the river runs through it cast. If you have room behind you to not get caught in a brush. I've seen professionals get caught in the brush, so don't get frustrated if it happens. Just be very careful and patient getting it out. So this is just 3 counts. I even recommend 5 counts, and I'll kind of show this way. So I count 11 and 1. I've heard guides say the same thing. It used to be 10 and 2, but people get too lax down here. So you keep it up high, 11 and 1, and you go 1, 2, waiting for it to catch up. 3. Oh, sorry, I counted wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, and your 5th count is laying it on the water, nice and straight. Jeff posted this in the Las Vegas Fishing Addicts page, one of the fix.com links, and I had it in a presentation too, and then added some more. So then you have the overhead cast, forward cast, sorry. So that's when you're going forward, and that's where you combine those and make the 5 count. And I think this is just, you can probably fish like this a lot of times.
Anywhere.
Everywhere.
That's the best cast to learn for beginners and experienced fishermen alike. That's the cast right there.
The water in front of you is going to be clear. You can always roll cast. Just make sure, I don't like really that it has a loop on it, because you're not really going to loop it. You're going to pull it sideways. And so I see it more as like a 4, which is almost kind of like stay fishing too. And you kind of like pull it up and then flip it out. And again, picture laying it down. Always envision what you want. Please don't crack the whip. but it's fixable. Give yourself time, make sure you're pausing, and we'll go over this at the end too. Give yourself time, give that fly time to catch up to your line, to your cast. And it is happening because you're either breaking your wrist or not giving it time. It can be a combination of both. So try to keep the wrist straight. We even have training aids, and you can buy them. I can't remember what company makes them, but it literally wraps the fly rod to your wrist to help keep it nice and straight.
You can also put your thumb on the top, like doing a thumbs up, and that'll also help stop your wrist from breaking too. Or you can kind of grab it with your finger, and that, because you don't want to bend your fingers backwards, so that'll help break habits too. It took me a while to stop breaking my wrist. I still sometimes do it, and just have to watch yourself.
Yeah, you learn real quick. You're like, oh wait, there goes my fly that I wanted to use all day. All right, so I figured a lot of you are on here also to wonder where you can even go fly fishing near you. So this is sunset at Veterans Memorial Park Pond in Boulder City. Oh, I should have moved it over. My daughter's got the fly rod over here. Streams are great. The fish are hiding right below, but he's casting over here. So that happens. But give your line time to go downstream and get to those fish and stay still and calm. I actually got to do a survey. I have to bring this up real quick because it was so neat to get to see fish. Overall, not care that I was there because I was really smooth, calm, and subtle. But we were doing a survey on Lake Mead because the water's so warm. And I got to watch a catfish literally just eating below me, and he did not care I was there whatsoever. So if you're calm, you're presenting well, the fish are there. I promise the fish are there. You just have to give them time, and you just have to learn what the fish want. And then on the right here is a reservoir. This one's Cave Lake, which is my favorite place to catch browns. Little browns, but they're still fun. So here's a whole thing on how to keep that fish wet. Sometimes, honestly, my favorite pictures are when people can get, and a lot of our phones are waterproof, or you can get a waterproof bag. And so some of my favorite pictures are the fish underwater. So you can look up how to do that. And we definitely want to keep the fish out there and reproducing and making more. So definitely keep them wet. All right, so we actually are a little ahead of schedule, which is awesome. So to wrap up one of the questions, where would you guys recommend to fly fish within 3 hours of Las Vegas in the next 2 months?
Anywhere in southern Nevada is going to be really hot, in my opinion. 3 hours from Las Vegas, I would probably head into Utah. In the Penguich area, Duck Creek area, Pine Valley Reservoir, somewhere up there.
Yeah, it depends on what species you're targeting too, because you can go Quail Creek, Sand Hollow, just outside of right outside of St. George, and you can get a float tube or even from shore, and they've got great bass fishing up there. I know some of those places are, as we are, also in a drought, so you just have to be mindful of those things and check reports, make sure you're looking at water temperatures and stuff too, because obviously none of us want to harm fish if we're doing catch and release. So yeah.
And Eagle Valley is a mountain reservoir And so it's still cool in the mornings. It definitely does get warm in the afternoons, but it's about 3 hours north too on the Utah border. And you can catch trout, bass, and crappie still. Oh, and Kirch is only 3 hours, but the weeds are getting kind of thick and it's really warm in the afternoons. But so it'd have to be an early morning date.
I mean, but if heat isn't a factor, I mean, even locally in our ponds in Lake Mead, you can fish Willow Beach. It just depends upon where you want to go, really.
Yeah, and Willow Beach is about an hour south, and there are trout stocked every weekend. So that's fun. You just have to, again, get out there early before the kayaks and all the other recreators get out. All right, so what do we remember? Does anybody remember all 3 knots for connecting, or the main 3 knots for connecting fly line? I gave you 5, but if you can name 3 of the 5. You can type it in the chat or Q&A, whatever is easier. We'll look at maps. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. Yep, we've got 1. Arbor Knot. Nail surgeon arbor. Awesome, yes.
Excellent.
Arbor nail, and I put loop to loop, sorry. It was around 2 o'clock before I got tired. So I would say surgeon or improved clinch knot for your flies. Like I said, there are 5. And they also modified the presentation again. Yes. Awesome answers, good job. The important tools, they popped up here. Any of your important tools, audience, type them in too. I just put in a few things. Jeff said the pliers and clippers. I like the silicone net. As soon as I saw those, I think that was like my favorite thing that I found. And the Vester bags are always fun. Oh, cute. All right, next question. Make sure I don't go ahead too fast. Casting. What are some do's and don'ts for casting that you guys remember? I'll be patient.
Not all at once.
Yes. It's a little slow because I know that they were typing while we were answering.
Don't crack the whip.
Exactly. Yes. I'm glad you guys remember that. So do we remember how to make sure that doesn't happen? Don't loop the line, yes. Actually, the comment is don't snag your neighbor's eye. So honestly, it's usually the person that's teaching you. So this happened to me. Luckily, I did have glasses on, but one of Jody's set's been fishing. I don't even know how many years. He's retiring. He's been fly fishing up north for so long. So he knows a lot, and he was trying to help me on this river, and he grabbed my wrist, and guess what happened? The fly went right into my glasses. I heard a tink and was very thankful I had my glasses on because it kind of like pulled back too. So glasses are so important so we don't snag each other's eyes. And also we looped the line on that one.
Yeah. 3 weeks ago, I caught a fly to the cheek from my son. He casted and his arm went forward, but the fly didn't because it was right here in my face. So That's why it was barbless. It just came right out. No big deal, but it happens.
Yes, one more reason to um, just keep the tension. You don't need the barb. Press it down. As long as you have tension on your fish, they won't get off. I caught bluegill. It was last month. It's been about a month now, but literally like nonstop. And it was so much fun. And as long as I kept tension, they did spit it out. And bluegill are really good at just biting it, so it's really good. So yeah, here's where the ones that my top ones. Sorry, go back real quick. So for casting, cast for your surroundings. Know what water you're going to. You don't want to lose your fly in the tree. You also don't want to leave the line behind. So smooth accelerations, which is that pausing to let your line catch up. That way you're not cracking the whip. And stops for that too. Make sure you're pausing, stopping, and also waiting for the line to catch up. So all the same thing. Good answers, guys. All right, so here's all our information. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you guys for hosting. So embrace the outdoors, some little tips and tricks to get outside if you haven't been out in a while. Again, my name's Abby Zarnecki. Here is my phone number. If you have any questions around Nevada, I'm usually in the know on all the news. And here's my email address that goes right to me. Anytime, any day, pretty much. I can't help but check for messages, so feel free to email anytime. Jeff and Chris's nice, long, difficult last name, sorry.
Butchered.
I know.
It's all good.
Full for moderating. And then you can find Jeff and Chris on Facebook or at our events in the Southern region. And they're on Las Vegas Fly Fishing Addicts. Oh, and real quick, if anyone, I see a couple questions, and I just didn't clear them. Before, if anyone has any other questions before you go, collapsible fishing rods. I can switch. Let's see if I can new share. There we go. So, there. I think you can see that. Let me move.
It's like a telescopic rod. It would work. I've never used one personally, but they sell them for a reason. And they also sell the travel rods that will come in like, 8 or 9 sections that will do the same thing instead of the telescopic rods. I have used the travel rod, and I don't remember how many pieces it came in. It was so many years ago. The action was a little stiff, but it definitely worked. You definitely get away with it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like a 10-car rod too.
Yeah, and my friend had real good success. She, our coworker is urban fishing. She mountain climbs, and she got a 10-car rod and was able to get some fish for dinner one night. Where she went back up in. So that's always an option around the same price points too.
So Abby, it just a question came in and said that I ride my motorcycle a lot to the local lakes, and would it fit in the pack? So my buddy had the exact same thing on the rod that I just mentioned that I used. He had a motorcycle as well, and it took virtually no room in his backpack, and that's why he had that travel rod. So I think you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. I even, like I said, I just have an entry-level one of the 4-piece packs. The reel and everything just stays all in one container, similar to that Cabela's one. And I just stick it in the side, like in the water pouch of my backpack, and get on the airplane with it. And as long as you put it down and it blends in with the floor, you're usually good. Try to get a window seat if you can. And then that way it's up against the wall too. So I have only had one flight attendants say anything, but I've been able to fly with a 4-weight rod. So definitely, yeah, whatever is comfortable for you. So this is that website too, fish.wildlifenv.com, and goes to the map and say we want to, just because bluegills first, these are all little bluegill waters. Sorry. So they are in Lake Mead, all through the Colorado River. Here's the urban ponds down south, up north. They have been found in Paranagit. I haven't seen them in a long time. There are a few bass. Hyco is Nesbit Lake right here. There's a few bluegill in there. Those are a lot of fun to catch too. I bring those up just because those are the hot ones right now because it's warm. And then they're in the Walker Lake feed. And here's the urban ponds that they're in too. So then you can get more specific on creeks, lakes, rivers, a specific body of water you're thinking about. And then we'll go to brown trout. And here's obviously more waters that they're in. Some nice mountain springs here. Streams. Let's see if Cave Lake comes up.
Somebody just asked if that website works in California.
Oh, so no, unfortunately, but I believe that there is one. And if you don't find it, I will be more than willing to help you. And I do know some of the fish coordinators for California and can definitely get you that information. And actually, I think there is a new person to the position. I think they just got hired.
I know Utah has, like ours, Utah has one. I think California on their Fish and Game website, I believe it lists a majority of them, but I've never really like messed with it.
Yeah, just like Utah's, it's usually through their website or their app.
Yeah.
Ours isn't there yet because we don't have the app, but we are working on releasing the new website. So then this will be on there. And there is, Google Maps actually has some websites too that you can use like this. And then we'll go to rainbow trout because they're everywhere. So you see little blue dots popping out, just zoom out, get comfortable, and then you can click on them. But yeah, wherever you are going, they should have this. Colorado has maps. That's where I like to go see my friends. So, but this one's just made for Nevada Department of Wildlife. Yes, so this is recorded. You will be able to find this on our YouTube channel, NV Depth, for short for Department of Wildlife on YouTube, or just type out Nevada Department of Wildlife and you'll get to our YouTube channel. And this will either go under fishing or it might just go under general webinars. They've been better about breaking them down. If you can't find it for any reason by the end of next week, please let me know though. And I'll get it uploaded myself. So thank you all for participating and for watching with us today. It was awesome having everyone on, and we got done a little early. And so now we can get ready for the next day. Did we answer all our questions? Yeah, if you need help finding anything, I'm really good at researching, so I'd be more than willing to help anyone. Have a very good night. Oh, and Saturday, sorry. I will send it to, I think I sent the link already, but I'll resend it and see if anyone signed up first. And then Michelle and Claire will be out there to help Chris and Jeff. So if you can join them bright and early, it's about 30 minutes from Vegas to drive out there, but it's wide open. It's a really good beginning pond, and the bluegill love to bite. So it's a lot of fun. All right, have a very good night. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.